Hey, why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you all for being here. My name is Jan Gonzalez. I'm a community education supervisor with UC Cooperative Extension out of the San Diego County office. I work on a variety of agriculture and natural resource programs, but probably the longest program I've been associated with has
Sorry,
been,
Jan. Are you recording?
yes, I am.
Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Should be recording. Let me double check now. Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
am.
see that now. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. I appreciate you asking. But I have worked with the Goldspotted Oak Borer Education and Outreach Program since its inception, about 2009. And I also work on other emerging tree pest outreach programs. So that's why I'm here. I'd like to also introduce our other, the rest of our team on board today. We have Beatrice Nobuo Behrman, or Bea. She is the urban forester, natural resources advisor for UC Cooperative Extension based out of Orange and Los Angeles County. We have Kim Carella, who is a forest pathologist with the CAL FIRE. And we have Julie Clark, who also works on emerging tree pest issues. She's based out of the Ventura and also assists with LA and other county areas north of me as needs arise. She's kind of going to be providing support in the back end, and also Randall Oliver is here. He is the communications coordinator for the shot-hole borer and Mediterranean oak borer programs, but does a lot with us. We all partner together on the emerging tree pest issues. So thank you all for being here. Together with the rest of the team, we want to welcome all of you for being here. And we have reserved 2 hours for this webinar, but we may not take that long. We'll see how well we do and how many questions arise. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start moving forward. Let me move my little bar here out of the way. I did want to let you know that we are recording this webinar, so folks that could not make it midday will be able to view it before the Blitz actually starts. And then I wanted to share with you a little bit about, let me see, oh, we have you all muted. If you have a question, please put it in the chat room, but we have reserved time towards the end of our webinar for Q&A time where we can perhaps open up mics as needed. We'll see how things go. If you haven't already, please type in your name in the chat pod and let us know which county or Blitz group name that you are with. And does anybody else know of any other housekeeping I should mention? I can't think of anything else. So let's move forward. So about the GSOB Blitz pilot project. So I did want to emphasize this is a pilot project. Typically, survey and monitoring, we do not, it's not we want you to be looking at oak woodlands and being mindful of your surroundings and the environment anytime that you're out and about. We invite you to always be aware of changes in your environment. But typically, Goldspotted Oak Borer surveying is best done in the winter, early spring months, so that management decisions could be made and applied in the spring time. So June is typically not the month that we suggest you go out and survey, but this is a community powered effort, and we did want to spend time with volunteers, get them some training, introduce people to Goldspotted Oak Borer and the whole survey and monitoring process. We're excited. This seems to be going really well. This is a pilot project. Our hope is that we'll be able to continue to have these types of events either later in the year or next year or possibly annually. It's patterned after another long time running program called the Sudden Oak Death Blitz program in North Coastal area of the state. Kim might be able to mention a few words about that when she speaks. I know she's been highly involved with that for over the years. So these surveys, as you see there on the screen, do help scientists and land managers decide where to take action to help save our trees. Unfortunately, GSOB has moved. It's distributed throughout various counties here in Southern California. And the more the public is aware of what's going on, what evidence of infestation looks like, how they can report it, how they can participate in these types of monitoring efforts, the better. So we're just really trying to raise awareness. The other, I guess, impetus this project is giving is helping us develop a regional map. So we met with a broad range of stakeholders in the region to discuss what characteristics would be needed, what kind of data needed to be collected, what kind of map attributes did we want, where was going to be hosted, who was going to develop, but all these types of basically development questions we were able to discuss, and I know Kim will be talking more about that later, but this project really helped move that component of the project along, which was helpful. I'm so excited. We've got 7 groups that are meeting in 6 different counties. So I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our collaborating partners and agencies. Everyone is just coordinating so wonderfully. We're going to be starting the first day, June 1, in San Bernardino. The Inland Empire Resource Conservation District is going to be hosting a group there in the Oak Glen area in Yucaipa. Then we move on to Los Angeles and San Diego counties. On Tuesday of next week, we'll be hosting their groups surveys in county parks. So we're partnering with county parks. The following day, the Ventura group, working with CAL FIRE and Julie with UC Cooperative Extension, will be meeting there, and the details for that area are still being worked out, the fine details. And then in Riverside County, we actually have 2 groups. One is at Lake Skinner and one is at Vail Lake, more on the southern end of the county. Both, well, the one in the southern area of Riverside County, Vail Lake, is a team, it's an interesting team, but partnering resource conservation district. So we have the team RCD, which is in Riverside, and we have RCD of Greater San Diego County are working together for that survey. And then the Mountain Communities Fire Safe Council is heading up the survey group at the Blitz group at Lake Skinner. So both of those are happening on Saturday the 7th. And then we have Orange County is being led, that Blitz group is being led by the Irvine Ranch Conservancy. And I think they'll be in Silverado Canyon, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyhow, so we're really excited. Lots of group leaders, collaborators, folks are doing wonderful things. Like I said, again, a pilot project. So we're working out some logistics and communications and just various little bumps along the way. And it's going splendidly. It seems like the word is getting out and folks are responding. We have a lot of people registered already. So thank you to all of our partners, and thank you to our funders. This specific coordination activity is being funded by CAL FIRE. So we appreciate they've always been very supportive of our Goldspotted Oak Borer and other emerging tree pest programs. So we appreciate their support, and again, hope that this is just the beginning of an annual, at least, event. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Bea to share a little bit more about GSOB.
Just a quick note that the Orange County is actually going to be the Irvine Ranch Conservancy in Limestone Canyon, which is near Silverado.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Randall. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Randall. Thanks, Jan. Again, I'm sorry I interrupted you earlier. I just wanted to make sure that your introduction got into the recording. All right. So I'm going to give you a little overview on what are we going to be looking for when we try to identify Goldspotted Oak Borer infestations. I know that the GSOB online course went live and you all received an email with a link um, to take that online course in very nice and detailed steps on how to make your user in this platform and get to the course. I'm hoping that either you were able to do it or you will be doing it soon. So I won't be going very much in detail about the biology of this pest and management, but I do want to review with you the things that are going to be super duper important for this upcoming blitz. So basically, GSOB is this beautiful Buprested beetle from the jewel beetles group, and it's quite small, as you can see here. In this is the GSOB on a penny. It's about as long as a long a grain of wild rice ish, more or less. It's thicker, but almost as long. And even though it's very characteristic, you can see those 6 golden spots and very, flashy in a way, you probably won't see any beetles. Because they're usually up in the canopy, and they just feed on some leaves and then mate, and that's it. So the main problem here is not the adults, but it's the larvae that wants to cause the damage. And so because the larvae live inside the tree, what we're going to be looking for are signs and symptoms of infestation rather than just the actual beetle. So just for those of you who haven't taken the online course yet, we have this beetles who will lay their eggs on the bark. From those eggs will hatch a teeny tiny larvae. I don't know if you can see it. I'm running it right now with my cursor. It's this teeny tiny thing. And then that larvae starts, tunneling into the phloem and up to the cambium, and she's gonna be feeding on all this nice tissue. And as she feeds, or he, as this larvae feeds, it starts growing and turning bigger and bigger and bigger. And while the insect is feeding, it leaves all this sort of galleries or tunnels within the cambium. And by damaging the cambium, which is where the tree grow, and that's where the new phloem appears, it's like basically eating all the phloem and the cambium, and so that sort of girdles the tree. Eventually, it limits the ability of the tree to move water and, well, mostly nutrients, and so the tree ends up declining and eventually dying. And so we have this larvae that develops into a pupa eventually, and from the pupa to the adults. And this happened in about a year. And, the whole life cycle takes about 1 year. And as Jan was saying, usually the emergence part of the cycle, so when the adults are coming out of the tree, that starts happening sometime in April. They start coming out, depends on the altitude. They'll start earlier or later because they're insects. It's very temperature dependent, but it's safe to say that between April and May they'll start emerging, and June and July is the time of the season when most of the adults that develop that season are going to come out of the tree. And so we're kind of mid-emergent season, and so we're going to be see hopefully some of the damage, but we might not be seeing all of the damage that happens throughout this season. But let's start with where are we going to look for that damage? So we have to start looking at the trees. There's 3 species of oaks here in California that are hosts for Goldspotted Oak Borer: the coast live oak, the California black oak, and the canyon live oak. The canyon live oak is less preferred, but still a host. And the coast live oak and the black oak are the most preferred hosts in here. So our first step is make sure we know how to identify the host. So we're looking at the correct tree that could or not be infested with GSOB. So let's dive into how do we distinguish these three kinds of oaks. So our coast live oaks, they're very prevalent, especially in the coastal areas of California. They keep their leaves all year round. They're evergreen. And their leaves are oval shaped, but like kind of curled as a little cup, like cup shape. And then what you will see in the underside of the leaf, it has little tufts of hair right where the veins meet, right? Like here and here and here. It's maybe this picture is a little bit small to see it, but you will see, and I like to remember it. I had learned it as they have hairy pits, because it's like these are the pits of the leaf. So that's very characteristic of California coast live oak. Their acorns are big. These are trees that can grow very, very big and very, very tall and wide. And usually they're found more at lower elevations closer to the coast. So here in Orange County, San Diego, in all the areas that are closer to the coast, we're probably going to be finding coast live oak. But then we have the black oak. So for the black oak, these trees will lose their leaves in the winter. And the leaves are very different. They have these very deep lobes. And at the end of each of these lobes, they have this bristle or like a little spike, if you want. These are also trees that can grow very tall. Usually we find them at higher elevations. And the the new leaves have this sort of purplish tones, and then the mature leaves have this nice deep green to them. And lastly, the canyon live oak is what I like to call the shapeshifter of oaks, because they could be as small as a bush or as big as a huge tree. They can be in many different elevations, and even within the tree, the leaves, all of the leaves are oval shaped, but they can have a serrated edges, right? Like this one over here or this one over here, or they can have smooth edges. And often they could be larger or smaller. And often we can find all the different types, serrated, non-serrated, long and on short leaves, all in the same branch sometimes, or in the same tree. So but that is also something very peculiar and something that will help us identify this tree. When the leaves are small, they have on the underside, you'll see kind of goldish hairs. But once the leaves are big and mature, the underside of the leaf has this grayish color that you can see over here. And they lose all those hairs and they just look this gray color. And something kind of interesting is that for the acorns, the cup of the acorn is way bigger than the acorn, or wider than the acorn itself. So to recap, we have canyon live oak, this oval shaped leaves, kind of flat, could be serrated or not, shape shifting, all the leaves on the same kind of tree. Oval leaves, but serrated and cup size, kind of like bent as a little cup that you could hold a little bit of water in them. That is a coast live oak. And lobated leaves, that's our black oak. So now that we have a better idea of how to distinguish between all three hosts, of course, there's a lot more oaks here in California. So you could find other species of oaks that might look like one of these. But in general, these are, some of the most abundant ones, at least here in Southern California. So chances are you're going to find one of these. But always check with your leaders and make sure that the oaks that you're looking at when you do the blitz are the correct hosts. And Kim is going to go a little bit more in detail of the kind of information you collect, but we'll also ask for some pictures that will help us, corroborate that you actually have the host species correct. So now we're gonna dive into detection and monitoring, right? Like we really need to detect this pest early so we can take some action. And one of the things that we'll be doing is we're going to be monitoring, or in this case, recording the state of all of the oaks in that area, whether they're infested or not. I guess the mics are closed, but if you can turn on your mic, you can tell me, you can write in the comments like why you think that we are going to be collecting information on both infested and uninfested trees. We're just looking for GSOB, right? Why wouldn't we just collect information just on the infested ones? I got one said to track trends over time, to measure level of infestation. Excellent. Yeah, exactly. We want to know what's going on in that whole area. Heavily infested trees need to be removed. Yeah, that's true. Baseline tree health data, said control group. That's someone else said, Mason said, yes, we want to know, this tree was infested this year, and what about next year? It wasn't infested, it was infested and got worse, it was uninfested and got infested. And also because we're managing the whole area as a whole, so we want to know what's going on in our, how many of the trees that we have are infested, how widely spread the infestation is. And one thing is, if I have no data about that tree, it's, is very different than having data that said that tree is not infested. It means that you looked at it and you determine it not infested. So that's a certainty that you have, right? So that's very important for management purposes. Someone else, would we be able to determine this as a possible reason the tree is dying? Maybe. It is possible. It depends on how infested it is. It could be. Trees could be dying for other reasons as well, right? But yes, if it's heavily infested, yeah. So let's, oh, come on. There we go. Now, so we're going to be looking at evidence of attack. So the things that we can look at are this D-shaped exit holes, that the beetles do when they finish their life cycle, they finish developing from larvae to adults, they become adults, and they basically chew their way out of the tree, leaving this like capital D-shaped exit hole. That is a very telling sign that there's GSOB that have been developing in that tree. And this is going to be kind of our main sign. But there's other things, we can have staining on the bark. We can have dieback or crown decline. We can also see sometimes woodpecker activity when the woodpeckers remove a little bit of the bark to eat those juicy pupa that are developing right under the bark. That is not always the case. Not every time a tree is infested has this like damage by woodpeckers, but sometimes, especially in heavily infested trees, you might see that. And woodpeckers, unfortunately, they don't, the actions of the woodpeckers eating this, the pupa of the GSOB is not enough to act as biocontrol, because it would be amazing if they did, but unfortunately that's not enough. But yet we can still use it as a telling sign that there might be GSOB in that tree. And lastly, if we take an axe and remove the bark, we will see this the galleries under the bark in the cambium layer of the larvae, as the larvae was eating and chewing through the phloem and the cambium. This is not something we would do unless the tree is heavily infested, because this is very damaging for the tree. But this will be kind of the super duper confirmation, there's no doubt that this is GSOB. So we're mostly going to be looking at the crown, the staining, and the holes. So let's go into what kind of crown symptoms do we see. So in coast-live oaks, for example, when an oak is likely infested or the first years of the infestation, the crown would look just normal. You probably won't see much, if damage on the crown or crown thinning. It takes about 3 to 5 years for GSOB to kill a tree or to show very strong crown damage in a tree. But as the infestation progresses, we can see either the crown thinning, so it's, it doesn't have a particular branch that is dead, but there's way less leaves than you would expect. The crown is thin, right? It's like it's losing its hair, basically. And then in advanced stages, you'll start seeing branches that are dead, so directly dieback as a result of GSOB attacks. In black oaks, what you will see, remember black oaks lose their leaves in the winter. Well, black oaks infested with GSOB will retain those leaves. The leaves will get brown, but they will not fall, which is a telling sort of sign that something is going on in there. And then when the leaves come up the next season, they will be way smaller than the previous leaves. So that's another sign in the crowns of black oaks that something is going on. Also, this picture is showing a bunch of staining. That's kind of common also in black oaks to show some staining when you have infestation by GSOB. So when we look at the crown and we give it a rating, we're going to be looking at if the crown is full or if it's thinner. So branches that look like they're not as full of leaves as expected, or sometimes if there's some branches that are dead or dying. So based on that, we're going to assign it a crown rating from 1 to 5. This is something that Kim is going to go through as well, and you have a field guide that is going to show you this, showing you examples of crowns that have 10 to 25% thinning, a 25 to 50% loss of canopy, more than 50% loss of canopy, or basically a dead tree. But remember, this is not an exclusive symptom of GSOB. This crown thinning can happen because of other pests, because of drought, or some other stressors to the tree. So this is something, that is, you would build up the case. The next thing is the bark staining. If you see bark stain, you can count how many stains you have. And again, this is not a symptom that is exclusive of GSOB. Oaks can have bark staining because of, or trees in general, because of many different reasons. Just a lot of the times it's caused by some kind of fungal infection or bacterial infection. So just the staining is not a telling that there's GSOB, but can contribute to understand what's the state, what's the state of that tree. And then the D-shaped exit holes, like counting how many of those. That's the clear symptom that we have a GSOB infestation, right? And we're going to be counting how many of those holes the tree has. So here's a question for all of you. Why do we care about how many holes? Why are we going to be counting? Oh no, hope people are not asleep. How many OB in the tree, or GSOB in the tree? Assess the level of infestation. Yes. And Mike said amplifier trees should be removed. Exactly. So we need to know how many there are, because depending on how many holes we have, we're gonna decide what management, what kind of management we're gonna do to that particular tree. Is that tree a good candidate for treating? Is that a tree that needs to be removed because it's an what Mike said, like an amplifier tree, so a tree that is severely infested. It's not the same if a tree has 2 exit holes than if it has 45. So we're gonna be deciding our management actions on an individual basis of each tree based on the hole, how many holes it has, but also based on how the crown is looking. Is a tree that is overall healthy but only has a couple of holes? It's not the same that a tree that is basically almost dead and has a couple of holes. So that's why we not only need to know if it's low, moderate, or heavy, but kind of how low, how heavy. All right. Now, if we take pictures of exit holes for GSOB, make sure they're in focus, and we can have something like this. We're putting something for scale, but well, I can't see your faces right now, but just think about my finger is probably not the same size as your finger, as other fingers. So everyone has different size of hands. So this is not such a great scale, you know. Something better would be to use something like a coin or something that is standardized, or even better, you can use the GSOB cards that you will get in your Blitz kits. So you put that next to what you think is a hole, and so mostly because we have this ruler in the card, you can use any kind of ruler just to show the size of that hole. So, and just keep in mind this, not only for the Blitz, but anytime after the Blitz that you find, you know, a tree and you suspect it's infested with GSOB and you want to report it and get someone to come see it or someone to tell you, yeah, I think you're right, it's GSOB or not, we're gonna be asking you, hey, send me some pictures. And we will want pictures like, ideally like this one, right? But at the least, like this one. Please don't send us a picture with your finger because we don't know how big your finger is. But anyways, this is something to keep in mind when you find holes and you want to report them. And then when you find them, just make sure you get confirmation from your leader that this is in fact GSOB before you submit an infested tree. This is important because this is how we learn. You're gonna notice that you're gonna probably think that a lot of the holes are GSOB, and they might not be, because it's a little bit hard at the beginning until you get a good search eye. I know some people I saw who is in the group. I know some of you have a lot of experience, but some of you might have zero experience, previous experience with GSOB. So it's good to, you know, get an eye for it. And so part of this process is to get your Blitz leader to say yay or nay to what you think it's a GSOB hole, and then that's how you get better. All right, and with that, it's done. I'm done with my part, and we'll pass on to Kim to tell us about data collection.
Okay, let me get my screen up here. Can you guys see that? Okay, so I'm going to go over data collection and how GSOB moves, and also about the map the regional map that we currently have and would like to make. So they did a good job about talking about GSOB and how to identify it, and then when you guys go over the training, you go in more in-depth detail about the biology of GSOB. But we know that GSOB lives in the bark. It's not in the wood, so it can spread very easily. So here is a GSOB adult ready to emerge in a little bit. It's not fully sclerotized yet, but it's right out the outer bark, and that's how it makes that D-shaped exit hole. So when it emerges, it only flies a little bit. They're really lazy. They don't want to fly very far. They can fly about a mile max, but they usually just hang out in the same tree they've been on or go to the next tree. They're not going to fly long distances. They don't have that, you know, will to move very far. They just want to go to the next tree, something that's easy. When you have a bunch of oaks in the area, they're just going to go to the next one. But however, since they do live in the bark and trees that die from GSOB can be easily missed to be infested with GSOB. Those holes are kind of small, so you might miss them. They move very easily with firewood. Oak firewood is really a valuable firewood. People like to burn it. It's really good for home heating and barbecues and that sort of thing. So it can move on a truckload, or it can move on like a flatbed trailer, and that can travel anywhere. So it can travel all throughout the state, and the larvae can remain viable and emerge from these firewood until they dry out. So it could be a couple of years. So GSOB can spread on a long distance. And just to show the point, here is just a map that I'm sure a lot of people have seen. This is a distribution of the 3 hosts that GSOB attacks: coast live oak, California black oak, and canyon live oak. So it could spread all throughout the West Coast. And with this and the temperature maps, they've come up with a risk map earlier when GSOB was first being discovered. And this is the distribution of where GSOB could spread in California based on the host map and then just temperature and flight distances. So just based on GSOB spreading on its own. But so the red and the orange are the most suitable habitats, and the green not so much suitable. And here the red dots are the distribution of GSOB in Southern California as we know right now. So obviously it has the potential to spread very far. So if you have truckloads of firewood be moved up the coast or up to the Sierras, that can be a really good source of material that can start a new infestation way out of its range in Southern California. So GSOB has spread quite a distance. Here's just a map, graph that shows the timeline of spread of GSOB. It was probably in San Diego County in the early 1990s, but it wasn't caught in a trap until 2004, and then we didn't associate it with the dieback in 2008. But since then, we found it in multiple counties, and then we keep finding it until recently to Ventura County in 2024. So it keeps spreading, and this is most likely due to firewood being transported, infested firewood being transported to cause these new infestations. So with these increasing spread throughout these counties, we created a map. It's a Cal invasive map. Try to just to have these locations visible for anyone who wants to see where GSOB is located. So this is the current map of all the infestations that I know about that reported to me. I maintain this map, but it's not the best map. I don't know all the locations. I'm sure there's some that are missed on here. So we want to have one that's more comprehensive. So what we're striving to do is to have one that's similar to the invasive shot-hole borer map. And here's that map. This one shows a distribution of invasive shot-hole borer, and it's real time, it's updated consistently. So we want to have a GSOB map that's similar to that. As I mentioned, the Cal invasive maps is limited in locations, but having a more regional map will allow confirmations of GSOB be uploaded, and it'll be more real-time distribution map, which will allow for early detection and rapid response in areas that we don't have GSOB, which is where these blitzes are happening. You guys are all being trained, so you can be out there and detect any new infestations of GSOB, and we can rapidly respond with management activities. Have potential spread, kind of knowing where that boundary is and where GSOB might move into it is really important. It also fosters collaboration with different agencies to come up with a plan that if they do have GSOB, who's going to respond, how are we going to facilitate that? And it prioritizes like management efforts, like what are we going to do if we do get GSOB? So that's what we're striving for. But we currently do have that Cal Invasive map. And if you just type in Cal Invasive, it'll come up, and you can type in Goldspotted Oak Borer and you can have that map. So now we'll go into the GSOB Blitz and the data collection. So before you go to your Blitz, you're going to want to download the Survey 123 app. This is an app on your phone that we're going to be recording data with for each tree that you survey. So you need to download that before you get in the Blitz, because you may not be in cell phone service, and you will need cell phone service to download this app. And you also want to download the survey that is within Survey 123 app. And I'll show you how to do this in a second. So you want to do these two things before you go to your Blitz. Definitely the Survey 123 before, and then if you do have service, you can download the Survey GSOB Blitz at your Blitz if you have service. So once you download the app, you can add data without internet access, and then you can upload that data later after you come back into service. And as Bea mentioned, you want to survey and record both negative and positive trees that may or may not be infested with GSOB. So this is, you can find it in the App Store. It looks like this, like a green background with like a notebook and a check mark. And then you can also find it on the Google Play Store. So they're both really easy to find. Make sure those are downloaded onto your phones before you come to the Blitz. So just to make sure you guys do that. So when you have your GSOB Blitz or the Survey 123 download on your phone, you hit the app, it opens up Survey 123, and you're not going to need to worry about signing in or doing this. You want to hit continue without signing in, and it'll bring you up to this screen. And then you can click the QR code icon right there, which will bring up a camera, and there'll be a QR code, and you can scan it, and that will bring up the GSOB survey that you can download. If you don't want to do it that way, you can hit the 3 lines button up here on the right, and that will bring up this screen. You hit download surveys, and then type in GSOB Blitz and hit search, and that'll bring up the survey as well. And this will all be in PDF form and sent out to you, so you can have that as like a primer, so you can look over it again before the Blitz if you have any questions. Okay, so once you download the Blitz survey, it'll look like this right here. And you click on that, and then it'll bring up this screen right here where you collect. Click on the collect button, and then it'll bring up the screen on the right hand side. So this will show the data that you're going to collect for each tree during your survey and during the Blitz. So first, the date pops up. It may not auto-populate, so you just click on that with your finger, and then it will auto-populate. And you want to enter your surveyor's name. You just enter your initials, but make sure you work with your Blitz leader, because you may have a Kayla Smith and a Keith Sampson and the same Blitz, and you have the same initials. So you want to make sure there's some identifier between if you have the same initials as somebody else, just so if you have a question about a survey that was submitted, we can just reach out to you and see if you remember, kind of what was going on. And then you want to click on what Blitz you're going to be on. So they're all labeled here. You just click on these boxes here and then hit the check mark. Oops. And then you scroll down, and then you'll have the tree species that you're looking up to. So you're standing next to a tree, you're typing in this data, you're going to click on the tree species, and it'll bring up a drop-down menu, and you'll have these coast live oak, black oak, canyon live oak, and interior live oak. We've only found GSOB on these 3, but I just put this one just in case you find one to survey. It's good to survey, get to survey different species. And if you don't see a species that's on there, I know in like San Bernardino or other counties, you might have hybrid species like the oracle oak or something like that. You can type that in as well on the species right here. And then go to the next column. You're going to type in the number of trunks. I'm going to go over that and what that really means. So, but first you want to go into DBH. So we'll go back to the number of trunks in 1 second. For those that aren't familiar with DBH, it's diameter at breast height. So that's 4.5 feet above the ground. So before you come, get a tape measure, measure 4.5 feet, and measure where it falls on your body. To me, my is right below my armpit, like right here. So I go to a tree, I stand to it, I know that's where I want to measure the diameter, because that's what we use to measure the size of the tree, and we can use that to correlate the infestation rate, how large that tree is, that sort of thing. And it will affect management strategies as well. So you go up to the tree, you measure 4.5 feet, and you take your diameter tape, which you'll be getting in your kit. It will be like a tape measure sort of, but fabric. And you wrap it around the tree, and where they overlap, that number where it overlaps is the diameter of the tree. So it could be 15, 25, however big the tree is. Then you mark that in the DBH column here. So DBH is the standard measuring height for forestry. So remember that, and then we'll go back to the number of trunks. So when you, so how do you know how many number of trunks you have? So for normal tree, you have 1 stem, that's 1 trunk. So in this column over here, you would put the number 1. But if you have a tree that forks or splits at DBH, so if you're a measuring tree at 4.5 feet and you have 2 trunks coming up, then that would be a split, but it would be below DBH, so that's still 1 trunk. But if it splits below DBH, then that's 2. So this tree, you would enter 1 here, and this tree here, you would enter 2 because that split is below the diameter at breast height. So that would be 2. You enter 2 here. And then again, just as 2 again, see the split is below diameter at breast height, enter 2. And if you have some trees, you might have 3 or 4 stems. This one has 3, they're all connected at the bottom, but the split is below DBH, so that would be 3. So depending on how many number of trunks you have, you enter that data in here, and then it'll bring up this information for each trunk. And I'll go over this live in a minute so you can see it actually go through the process really quick. But I want to go through this first. So you have your number of trunks, you have 2, and then you hit the check mark down here, and it'll bring up this information. As you can see if 1 of 2, you're going to have 2 of 2. So if you had 3 trunks here, it would say 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. So you can hit this arrow over and it will go to the next trunk for that information. So for each trunk, you're going to measure the DBH, and then the crown condition, staining, and GSOB exit holes. And then you're done with that, you click the next arrow and do that for the next one. And when you're done, you keep scrolling down, and then you do, then you'll be almost done with the survey. But as Bea mentioned, you want to do the crown condition for each tree. So there's the categories of 1 through 5. So as Bea talked about, the 1 is healthy, 2 has minor twig loss, so you might have a little bit of dieback. The crown's not quite as full and as thick as a healthy tree, so that'll have like 10 to 20%, 25% leaf loss. So that's a 2. 3 is a little bit more stressed, more moderate dieback. You have thinning, some twig dieback that has about 25 to 50% leaf loss, and then as a 4 would be more significant, severe dieback, the larger branches, greater than 50% crown loss, and then 5 would be dead. So these again are drop-down columns, and you click on which tree crown condition it looks like that your tree is showing. Staining, the same thing. Bea mentioned this as well. There'll be a rating system, 1 to 4. So if you have less than 5 stained areas, it'd be category 1, and category 2 is 6 to 10, and greater than 10 is 3. And then if the bark is cracking and falling off, and that's evident on the main stem, then that's a 4. So all these, when you put on the menu, will show these exact rating systems. So you won't have to memorize them or have anything to remind you. They'll be all in this drop-down menu. And if you see these asterisks by the field, that means it's a required field. So staining is not required, the DBH is, crown condition is, and GSOB holes are. And trunk tag is not required either. So you may be tagging trees, you may not be tagging trees. So GSOB exit holes is what you want to record as well, as Bea mentioned. So again, these same categories, 1 to 10 would be category 1, 1 to 2, 10 to 25, and then greater than 25. And again, these are all in the drop-down menu, and you, as well as that, you want to record the number of exit holes, because that's also a quality control. Because some of these fields are kind of small, you might hit the wrong thing, you might hit a 2, and which means 10 to 25 exit holes, but you might only have 8 exit holes that were really identified, but you hit the wrong button. So it's good to have a quality control. So you put the number of exit holes here, we can confirm what drop-down menu you really wanted to pick. And it also is a good tool for management, because if you have a 25 or 30-inch tree that has 25 exit holes, it will be more different management strategies than a tree that is like 15 inches and has 45 exit holes. So it's good to know that they will each be a GSOB rating of 3, but the number of exit holes makes the management strategy a little bit different. Okay, and then the pictures, you want to take a photo of the overall tree. So you want to take a picture of the whole tree so we can see the crown. Make sure it's, this would be a 5, it would be dead. So make sure we know what tree you're looking at and what the crown condition looks like, a close-up of the leaves, so we know what the species of the tree is, and then the exit holes. This is not a good picture because it has a finger, but it's better than nothing. She didn't listen to Bea's talk apparently. But so you want to make sure these are all in focus, and make sure you take all these 3 pictures. And there's also a couple other extra photo options for other things that you might want to include as well for each tree. So when you're done with all that survey, you click the check icon, and that'll bring up this screen. You can either send it now, continue the survey. So if you make a mistake and hit that, you can just hit continue the survey, and it'll bring you back to whatever you need to fill out. Or you can save in the outbox. I like to save it in the outbox because that way it saves your battery life on your phone. And if you don't have internet service, you still save the data. Your phone's not trying to connect to upload that data. And when you get back into cell phone service, you can just hit send now, and it will upload the data. And again, make sure you get confirmation from the GSOB leader that it is GSOB before submitting. For negative trees, you don't need to do that. So when you get back into service and you want to upload your data, open up the app again. You'll see in the outbox, there'll be probably multiple. You click on the outbox, or bring up this screen right here, and then you just hit send, and then all your data has been uploaded. So it's pretty simple. It sounds kind of complicated going through it this way, but it's really easy, and we'll go through it right now just so you see how simple it is. Once you hit send, all that data has been uploaded to the GSOB Blitz survey database, and which would be great, and we can see what's all data live that comes in. And these slides, as I mentioned, will be available as a PDF if you would like to have them to look through again. And we'll go through a live process right now of this, if I can get this to work. Okay. Are you guys still seeing my screen? I hope so.
Yes, it's working, Kim.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the date, like I said, you might have to click on it. You won't have to actually put the date in, but on the computer it's a little different. The date will pop up. It'll automatically do your location, so you don't have to do anything here. You'll have the lat and long, the surveyor's name. You put your initials. Pick your blitz you're going to be on. So I'll pick Ventura. I'm going to do Coast Live Oak. The number of trunks, say the split was below DBH, and I have 2 trunks that are below DBH, so that would be 2. And you see how that information all popped up. It looks a little different on the computer, but it's similar. So I don't have a tree tag, so you just enter the DBH in here. Say, I don't know, 16. Crown condition is minor. Staining. There is a no staining option here, so if you don't see staining, you can put that as well. I see 1 to 5. And then GSOB exit holes, say there's 10. And I see 4. And there's an option for notes as well. And you go to your next one and enter that same information here. So say it's 25, it's a big tree. That one looks horrible. There's a lot of staining. Exit hole is greater than 25, and say I saw 45. So you do that, and then you just keep scrolling down. I'm not going to actually take pictures, but you take a picture of the overall tree, the close-up of the leaves, and the exit hole, and there's a couple options here if you want to take other pictures. Remember to keep them in focus. We get a lot of pictures sometimes, but they're not in focus, and it's really hard to see what's going on. And then you just hit submit, and then that data will be uploaded, and we're good to go. So hopefully that was easy to go through. And if you have any questions, we can help you out anytime you need.
Kim, there are a couple of questions in the chat
Okay.
about, the first one is, will they be able to access the survey if they already have a Survey 123 account?
You can, but we would have to, yes, you should be able to access the survey if you have a Survey 123 account. A lot of people don't, so you wanted to set it up for the public, so it was easy. But if you do have one, you can access the Survey 123 account, yes.
Okay. And the second question is, does the absolute geolocation of each tree, where the person that's taking the geo point, is it stored? Is that where it's stored on the phone?
Yeah,
For
so
the
when
survey?
when you're going to the tree, you want to open up or hit that collect button when you're standing next to the tree, not kind of when you're back, because it does locate where you open that when you hit the collect button. So it might be off if you're a ways away a little bit.
Okay. And then there's one other question. It's not really particular to the application, the Survey 123 app, but you want to know at what number of holes does it determine the severity of infestation?
So it depends. Usually when you have 25 or greater, it's considered an amplifier tree. And for management, you want to treat trees that are low infestations, either have no infestation or 1 to 10 exit holes. And the crown is not thinning that much at all. So it's like a 10 to 25% crown rating. If they're too infested or too much thinning of the crown, or too many exit holes, a lot of that cambium is already infected, and any chemical treatment won't really be that effective, and the damage is already done to the tree. So you want to treat trees that are lightly infected. So the number of exit holes does determine kind of management strategies and how infested that tree is. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. And now we have, since you've been answering questions, 3 technical questions about using the app have come in with people having problems accessing.
Yeah, you can't access it now. We are going to change it right now since we just developed it. It's not open to the public yet, but we're going to have that open before the Blitz. So I have emailed the person who can change that today. So hopefully today or tomorrow, it should be open to everybody, but you will have access to that before the Blitz. You can't do it right now because she hasn't, I don't think she has changed that to everybody yet, but you will be able to soon.
And Kim will be sending me a QR code, which I will be sharing with everybody too. So we'll make sure that we let you know how you can access it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's it for questions for now, and a couple of thank yous
Okay.
for explaining that. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing now and go to Jan.
Let me see if I can bring. So I'm having a bit of a problem because my notes are right here. Okay, so hopefully I'll remember everything here. So it's survey day, and I just kind of want to review what to expect when you go to your location for survey day. I do want to let you know that you will be getting an email from me that will remind you of when your survey date and times are and location, any specific directions or parking instructions will be shared with you. And yeah, we will have supplies there for you with your group leaders. What to wear, we suggest, you wear comfortable outdoor, active outdoor clothing. We do encourage long pants, long sleeves, closed toe shoes. Every location is a little different as far as I guess ruggedness or development, levels. But we'll all be outdoors. So you may want to wear a hat, just want to make sure that you're comfortable, but that you're safe as well. You may want to bring sunscreen, snacks or lunch. Some of the groups are meeting over the lunchtime period. Water or refillable water bottle. A lot of the groups are meeting in parks, so there will be access to, faucets to refill a water bottle. I think, what else do you want to bring? So your devices, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet, make sure they're fully charged, fully charged. And as Kim just walked through, download the app in advance and look for the actual GSOB Blitz map or data collection survey 123 in advance, because we just don't know if you'll have access to the internet, if there'll be reception where you're at. So it's better just to do that at home when you do have access. So again, just please make sure that they're fully charged. Trying to think if there's something else. I'm sorry. I should have printed these notes out. One thing that you can expect when you arrive is checking in, and as there will be a need to indicate what your nickname is. If it's going to be initials, just make sure you clear that with the group leader who's checking you in. As Kim mentioned, if your initials are going to match others' initials, you may need to come up with a really short nickname that you'll be using as you collect, do your survey, your data collection. There'll also be some waivers you need to sign. At minimum, there will be a media waiver from the University of Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And that's just if, we're encouraging folks to take pictures. There may be some actual news media at some of the groups. Like I said, we've been highly promoting this, and it's and people are excited. So we'll have that media waiver for you to sign. Different groups have allowed different ages to participate. So there may be other waivers to sign that the organization who is your group leads may require you to fill out. So there'll be that paperwork type stuff to do. And then after that, there'll be a rundown, kind of an overview again of what you're going to be doing there. Group leaders will point out any specifics, like any specific rules to that location, to the area you'll be at. Point out any safety concerns or issues that you really need to look out for. We'll be distributing your GSOB Blitz bags, which will have information and tools enclosed. There are t-shirts coming. Now we're on a really tight schedule, so I just want to give you a heads up. If they have not arrived at the day that I have to start distributing everything to everybody, there will be another form for you to fill out to let me know your mailing address, and I will get those to you by the end of next week. So we're excited about all of that. Trying to think of what else I wanted to share. That's pretty much what you need to expect. Once you go, everything is reviewed, all the check-in, all the paperwork and everything, all the reviews have happened with your group leaders, then you'll be sent forward with, I don't know if they'll pair you up. I think every group is going to do something different, or, you'll be sent out. And then again, as a reminder, if you found positive infestation, to please have the information verified with your group leader. Again, it's part of the learning process. So it's important that we do this. And I just really can't think of anything else. We are just, again, thank you, all of you volunteers, for your time and for your concern for our oaks. And I'm gonna stop sharing now, open it up for, let me just quickly make sure I haven't skipped anything. Oh, I did want to cover, so the online course that is up, I did send you that information in the email. I don't know, Julie, if you want to put in the chat room the instructions for accessing the online course. That was also attached to the email I sent you recently. So just so you know, some people have taken the course already, and the certificate function does not seem to be working. I've got a couple of technical folks who are helping me with that, and I have a call later this afternoon. So hopefully that will all get resolved today. And I'll just let you know, those who have contacted me about that, and you can go back if you want your certificate. You should be able to just be able to re-log in and go and get your certificate. You don't have to retake the whole course. Again, this webinar is being recorded, so if you want to go back in and review any of it, I will be letting you know again via email when that link is up, when it's been posted and it's accessible. It will be on the event webpage where all the details of this event have been posted. So that's going to take a couple of days because I need to get our digital media tech to help me with that. So, we appreciate the help. It is serious business to us, but at the same time, we really want to, hope that this is a fun experience for you. We want you to explore and we want you to learn. So yes, please ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions from any of us, your group leaders. We want to help you learn, and we want this to be an enjoyable experience for you to really help you connect, because you are going to be helping to make a real impact. So with that, I think there's our contact information if you need to contact any of us directly. This is one of our logos here, and it's Q&A time. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. If you've got questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Let me see here. Rachel has a question. Oh, you've been answering it. Okay.
I think we're caught up for now,
we?
but yeah,
Okay.
with questions, but please, anyone, everyone, now is your chance. And to ask questions, and of course, in the field, there will be plenty of experts that you can access, but getting ready for the Blitz, we'd love to hear any of your concerns or questions now. Kim, we have a request. If you could repeat the methodology for determining DBH.
Sure. So that is 4.5 feet up. So if you take a tape measure and look at 4.5 feet and see where it falls at your body, you'll know that is where 4.5 feet is. So say it's like at your shirt collar or by your collarbone, and you go up to a tree, stand next to it, and put your hand in your collarbone and go a perpendicular line to the tree, and that's where you would measure DBH. So you would take a tape measure and measure around the tree. And if it's a single trunk, you would just take that one measurement. And if the tree splits above DBH, you just measure below it, if that's where it is. And if there's like a split below DBH at 4.5 feet, there's like the split is like at 3 feet, you'd measure each of those 2 trees at DBH at 4.5 feet. So I kind of hope that makes sense. We can go, it's better in the field. It's a lot easier in the field than describing it, but yeah, you just measure 4.5 feet where you are in your person, and then you can measure that tree, know where to measure that tree in the field. And the tape measure, it's just like it's a calibrated tape that takes into account, because the diameter of a tree, you're doing the circumference of the tree and dividing that by 3.14. So that tape measure is calibrated for that. So you just measure, you just take one end, that'll have 0, and you go around the whole tree, and then where that tape crosses, that number where the 0 lines up with the tape crosses would be the number that you measure. So it crosses at like 15.2. That'll be the number of inches that diameter is. I kind of hope that makes sense. And there'll be some diameter tapes in the Blitz bag, so we can go over that in the field as well for people that haven't done DBH before. That's not a problem.
There is thanks for, so everybody, you got that there will be DBH tapes available the day of the surveys in your Blitz bags. And Kim, is there any way you can online now, and before we get into the field, explain how a DBH tape is used without physically showing it? So while we're talking now, there's a question to that effect.
Like more than I just did. What do you mean how it's used? Like
Well, I get just, I mean, is it evident on the tape itself? How does that tape differ? I think maybe the question is, how does a DBH tape differ from a regular measuring tape?
Oh, because as I mentioned before, the you're measuring the diameter of the tree, but since it's a circle, you have to take into account that circumference. If you're going to measure the diameter without the diameter tape, you would take a regular tape, take the circumference of that tree, and then divide that number by 3.14. But that diameter tape takes into account that calibration. So it's already calibrated. So it's the lines are different than a regular diameter, than a regular measuring tape. So if it's already calibrated for that. So it already has that equation already into the tape. So you just measure it out and then wrap it around like you would just anything else. But if you want to use a regular, if you're on your own and want to use a regular measuring tape, you can use a regular measuring tape. But the DBH tape already has that calibration of the circumference divided by 3.14. So it's super easy. You don't have to do that equation after you get the measurement. I don't know if that's answers the question or makes sense.
So as in translation, it's a lot easier to use the DBH tape than a measuring tape.
Yeah, it's super easy. It's already calibrated. Yeah. Just measure on the tree and where it overlaps, and that number from where you have the first beginning of the tape and the other part crosses it. That's the number that you look at. So I can see if I can find a picture of it to show people. That would be helpful.
Alternatively, if you don't have one of those, you get the circumference and then you have to do the math. You have to divide that by pi, right?
Exactly.
I might also note that some of these tapes have just a standard tape measure on one side, and then the other side is the DBH. So if the tape is one like that, you have to be sure that you're using the correct side of the tape.
You might want to bring a calculator. No, we'll go over and make sure make sure you're using the right side. We can demonstrate that in the field, so don't worry about it. It's not really that difficult. We'll show you in the field. It's not that hard.
Okay, then the next question is, and Ralph, if you want to clarify, wants to know I think the question means, can they, if they find an oak that they want to add to the data that's outside of the survey place, can that be added? So it's about, yeah.
So I'm reading that as if they find an oak tree at a different location than where they're surveying for the Blitz, can they submit that data to the map? You know, I'll let Kim answer that. I would suggest if it's after the survey Blitz, so you have an opportunity for that experience. But I don't know if you have already
I don't know if we talked about that, but you can always upload that information to the online survey that we have at gsob.org, and then we can confirm it and then go that way. We haven't discussed about leaving the survey open after the blitzes, but that'd be a way to get information, and then we can upload that information.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with our website, gsob.org, gsob.org, we would strongly encourage you to familiarize yourself with the innumerable pieces of information, educational and guidance materials that are on gsob.org. Also, what Kim just referenced, if you find a point that's outside the survey area of the Blitz, she is suggesting there's a reporting tool on the homepage of gsob.org where people can report suspected infestation. And that is managed and vetted out, depending on the county and location, to GSOB experts to ascertain whether or not it is in a new area of infestation or one we already know about, and if it needs to be ground truthed in the field by GSOB experts. So that would be the place outside of the Blitz area to report a suspected infestation. Question about what are the outcomes of the survey of these Blitz surveys? Are people going to review the completed surveys and make some determination as to whether there are areas that need to be treated? And if so, how long would it take for those management decisions to be made after the Blitz?
You want me to field that, or Kim, do you want to field that?
Maybe Bea can talk about this. She hasn't answered anything yet.
All right. So, let me, okay. So this will kind of depend on who owns the land that will be surveyed. And that's different from each of the Blitz locations. So those lands belong to different partners, and they have the ultimate say on what happens with the trees over there. So what will be happening is we'll be sharing this information of the results of the Blitz with the land managers. They will know what the extent of the infestation is and which trees are infested, which are not. And depending on who owns the land and what previous experience they have with it, they might require some management recommendations, which we can provide to them, Or in some cases, you know, these are organizations that have been working, managing GSOB for a while, so they already have their own management plans already going on. In general, the recommendations include just to remove any amplifier trees, that is, trees that are severely infested, that have more than 25 exit holes, and especially once they start showing any sorts of decline. But more than 25 exit holes is already considered severely infested trees, and those are flagged for removal. Then what to do with the likely and moderately infested trees kind of depends on what the land manager wants to do and how much funding there is to do any kind of maybe treatments with insecticides. I know some areas have been spraying trees, and some the trees get trunk injected, and in some other areas they don't want to do either, and they just manage by removing amplifier trees. I am not sure what the different land managers in this particular case are going to decide, but that's those are their options, and we will, you know, we as the community of educators and people that work on management of invasive tree pests, and particularly GSOB, will provide management recommendations for them to follow, but we can't force them to do anything. But of course, if they're participating in this, it's because they're interested in managing their trees. So, you know, they'll do something. Just exactly what and which options they'll choose, we don't know yet.
Thanks, Bea. Next question is someone would like to know how the surveys are going to be set up at the site, whereby the participants will know which trees are being surveyed the day of the Blitz.
So that will be determined by the group leaders and the site managers. So for instance, like San Diego's group is meeting at a county park. So I'm meeting with the park ranger to the park supervisor to determine, you know, if they have a recommended area of the park that they would like us to focus on. So it kind of just depends on each individual location and or the group leaders too.
Yeah, so essentially every Blitz will be different, and it'll be in accordance to the landowner and the group leaders. So you won't know until the day of, and there's a chance that some groups may all stay together in a cohesive unit, and others may spread out. So that make sure that you're clear about that with your respective group leader. And we have one of our CAL FIRE partners, Adrian Poloni, posted the Goldspotted Oak Borer reporting tool in the chat, the link to that, the one that we spoke of a couple of minutes ago. Thank you, Adrian. So that's where you'd go to report any other areas with suspected Goldspotted Oak Borer. Okay, well, I think we've addressed all of the questions, but I think we also can stay for a couple more minutes if anybody else has concerns or questions and needs resources. You got a lot of Goldspotted Oak Borer experts here live right now, all in the same place.
So thank you all for being here. Again, if you haven't signed in, please let us know you were here. We will, at the end of the Blitz, there will be a request for your feedback. Again, this is a pilot program and we would like your feedback. So you can expect that evaluation and feedback survey to come your way after the June 15th. But thank you for being here today, and I'll be in touch regarding this recording and more information about your Blitz Day. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you all. I want to give a special shout out to Jan and all of our partners, the group leaders, the experts, and each one of you for engaging in this really important participatory science project. And we want to make sure you take everything you learn back to your groups and your communities. We need more boots on the ground that are aware of the signs of gold-spotted oak borer.
Super. I'm gonna go ahead and just stay on the line until till 2:30. So if you have any more questions, feel free to post them. Again, we appreciate y'all being here. Kim, Bea, Julie, Randall, thank you all. It is a team effort, and this will be an adventure. You know, I'm excited.
Thanks, Jan, for taking the heaviest load.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's contributing. It's been great.
It was the last minute. The certification on the campus web should be fixed by around tonight or tomorrow.
Yes, I'm hoping that it gets fixed by the end of business today. I'll let you know. I'm sorry it wasn't working. I thought I had it all ironed out on Friday, but apparently not. I was excited that so many people jumped on it over the weekend. Yeah, so I'm sorry the certificate wasn't working though, but we'll get it fixed. We will get it fixed and I'll let you know. And you don't have to retake the whole course to get your certificate. Yeah, I was going to mention, Kim, that you've been involved in this from the very beginning. This is what, 2008,
Don't remind me. Yeah, I know.
right?
Yes,
Well, sometimes you know, it just
Well, I
it
know.
surprises me how long, you know, because
I know. It's been almost
But,
20 years.
I know it doesn't seem like it, but
Yeah.
I'm glad, yeah, there's that expertise. Thank you for still sticking around and helping us out.
too. You too.
All right, it's 2:30. We're gonna wrap up early. I'm gonna go ahead and turn recording off and say goodbye to everyone. I'll be in touch and thanks again. Appreciate your support and help.